Good afternoon. Well, it's Friday afternoon and the weather is nice, so I'll try to keep this brief. First off, thanks to the Experiential Learning Fund for supporting this course most of the years that I've taught it since 2016. Second, how did this course come about? I'm Roland Bohr. I'm with the Department of History. I teach North American Indigenous history here. My research interests include Indigenous material culture, and that also includes learning about it through practical hands-on activities like building reproductions of indigenous hunting weapons like bows and arrows, for example. And I like to bring those to my classes for the students to see and experience, and whenever possible, I even take the students to archery ranges around Winnipeg so they can try these things out and see for themselves what kind of sophisticated technologies Indigenous people came up with here in North America. And in that context, I was asked multiple times whether there was an opportunity for the students to learn how to make their own. And at that time, there was also a need expressed by administrators at the university for a land-based Indigenous course on history, and especially the history of the fur trade. So I partnered with the proprietors of the ANPO-Bison Ranch in western Manitoba to create this course. That's what the landscape looks like. This is a little bit south of Riding Mountain National Park, near Rossburn, or between Rossburn and Russell, Manitoba, about 12 minutes away from Wevasakapo First Nation. The proprietors of the ranch are of Anishinaabe and Swiss background. Their daughter works now as the Indigenous Programming Director at the Manitoba Museum. Their son is a carpenter by training, but also a bison rancher, and both, as well as their parents, are very, very accomplished quill workers and bead workers and tanners of hides, and they pass these skills to some extent on to the students. So, how does this course progress? This is from the entry to the ranch. So we usually have 1 week of classes here at the University of Winnipeg and at the Manitoba Museum. That includes a bead workshop by Métis artist Janine Crouchy, who recently was part of an exhibit here at the university in the art space on the first floor. And lectures by me, discussions with the students. Assignments include a research proposal. The students need to write research papers on aspects of Indigenous material culture. So they do a proposal, they do a presentation at the ranch so they can get feedback not only from the students and from me, but also from the elders and knowledge keepers we work with, from the ranchers. And then they have to write, that's the bitter pill, their research paper. They also are required to write daily reflections for the second part of the course, which takes place at the ranch, where they need to connect their daily experiences with the readings I make them read. So, this is what our camp looks like. The ranchers provide one or more canvas teepees, and they often demonstrate how these are set up. So we start with the teepee cover on the ground and the poles all laid out. And then either our host, Tom, or his wife, Sabrina, will show how to set up a teepee, preferably with the help of a very inexperienced student. Yes, and we've clocked it. If you're taking more than 20 minutes to set up a teepee, you're not doing it right, because that's what they're designed for. So that's lesson 1 in Indigenous technology. These teepees are made from canvas. Earlier ones would have been made from bison hide, but the setup is the same in principle. So they get to see and experience that firsthand. But they also need to bring their own tents, which you see in the background here. And one of the material culture activities they can engage in is making their own bow and arrow. We also have tanning hides, so the traditional brain tanning and smoking of hides that they can learn. And last year, for the first time, we had a moccasin making workshop as well, where they use traditional tanned hides, real sinew and real rawhide to make their own moccasins. So some of the students are a bit perplexed when they get half a tree to work from. So I've toned it down since and done some preparation work for them. So they start somewhere in the middle. But these are the different steps they would have to go through to get from a tree to a bow. And here are some of the students working on their bow staves. They are using a draw knife and a hoof rasp. So these are metal tools. Some students asked why they couldn't use stone tools, be all traditional and all that. And I told them, well, if you wanted to do that, this course would be taking place in February during reading week. Because wood for bows and for arrows is best cut in the dead of winter. And if you want to use stone tools, you need to work with green wood. Having metal tools like these, which were available to indigenous people through the fur trade in the time that we're focusing on, 18th, 19th century, allows us to do this in the summer without the mittens and all. So again, there's more working with draw knives on bow staves. And once they've actually finished their bow and arrow, they get to try them out. Here are several students shooting their bows for the first time. And then here are the students with their the fruits of their labor. A small tanned deer hide, their bows and arrows, and this lady even made a traditional club. And I really learned something about material culture on that instance as well. You may have seen these in archaeological context. There used to be some on the anthropology display here. These are essentially egg-shaped pieces of granite. Right? The rounder they are, the more likely they were a tool for pounding tent stakes, for example. The pointier they are, the more likely they were a weapon. But they all have a groove packed around the middle, around the largest circumference, for hafting. And I used to think this would take weeks and weeks and weeks to do it. But Jasmine here grabbed a piece of granite and then another piece of granite and started whacking away at this thing, belting out traditional Nakota songs or new ones she made up under the July sun. And she did it in 3 days, and then used the remaining 2 days to make the handle and encase it in epidermal rawhide, sewing it with sinew. And when it was done, she made this for her father, who wanted a war club to dance with at powwow. I wasn't able to determine whether this was made in 2016 or in 1716. It was the same material and the same techniques. This is the group from 2024, also with our elder, Edward Cook, from Zapota Cree Nation. And here's Sabrina, our host from Waiwasacapo, and Eben Flo and her husband Tom, whose family came from Switzerland when he was a small child. And there are the students with their completed bows and arrows. And there are some of the bison. We usually take a trip on the back of the pickup truck and drive out into the herd. And no, they don't get to pick the one they want to eat. It's not like that. Even though the ranchers keep pushing me to make that part of the course. When you get to the university to buy a buffalo and we'll knock it over and butcher it. Imagine the ethics application for that one. So no. And there is a photo of the 2017 group with the bison in the background. Some years all of the students were Indigenous, other years it was a mix of Indigenous students, domestic non-Indigenous students, and international students. There is usually an opportunity to attend a sweat lodge. The elder we work with provides that. There's no pressure to attend. It's just there, students want it. And also our elder and his family are on hand to interact with the students and talk about their research papers or life in general. We've worked with Dakota, Anishinaabe, and Cree elders for this. And our first elder, the late Neil Sue, worked with Corrections Manitoba. And the current elder, Edward Cook, is a retired RCMP officer. So they have insights into life that I cannot provide on various levels, but that can be very, very useful for the students. And also, more recently, I've taken students to an archery range here in Winnipeg to prepare or give them a preview of coming attractions for the camping part. So Mr. Keith Loris from the 17 Wing Archery Club was nice enough to host us here at the archery range by the airport, and he even set up a simulated bison hunt, so they get that out of the system before they go to the actual ranch, so they can experience sitting on a very wobbly bar stool-like horse contraption at a near life-size bison tarp at the distance that this would have actually happened at. Then we've also set up different archery-related installations for future student night here at the university. For example, this is the horizontal version of Belgian pole archery that people are engaging in. Yeah, so that was what I had in terms of slides. So once again, thank you to the Experiential Learning Fund and to you for listening.